Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get going here. We're ready to go. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the January 16th meeting of Administration and Operations. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. There's a few more coming through the door. We're just going to give it just a half a minute here. Just very quickly, for those in attendance, if you haven't been here before, there are washroom facilities out through this way if you need to do so. And also, potentially, if in fact we go in camera for anything, there is a waiting room out there if you wanted to stick around and wait until that session is over. There will be room in there for everybody. So again, thanks for joining. As far as attendance, I've just received word from Councillor Chambers. He is on his way, just running a little bit late with the weather. Other than that, all of committee is here. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would make a motion that we move item 12, in-camera portion of the agenda, be moved to immediately following the delegations this morning.
Okay.
Taking a seconder.
Mayor Bailey, second that. Any questions regarding that? Any other? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, I have two items, Mr. Chair, under other business.
Okay. Anybody else with anything to add to the agenda? Seeing none, Mayor Bailey, move as amended. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Garneau, any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Declaration of pecuniary interest. If you have any now, let me know. If any arise through the meeting, please just let us know at that time. Delegations. We do have a few delegations today. First of all, we've got a public meeting to present the notice of consideration for an engineer's drainage report for the Harley Drain. It's a little different today. This is a public meeting, so there's different processes we have to go through as far as a public meeting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare that the public meeting is now open for this particular item on the agenda. I'm going to call up Shannon Tweedle. Is Shannon here? Okay. I think Shannon's going to talk a bit about this, and then we're going to, she's going to, my understanding is recognize the engineer that's online.
So the engineer is here with me today, and he will actually be presenting
Fantastic.
So there should be a presentation to pull up.
Okay. Just bear with us, Gary, if you could get that. You got that on there? Okay. Just give us just 1 minute here. If we could just get you to introduce yourself, and then the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes for your presentation, and we'll have questions after. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the committee. My name is Paul McIntyre. I'm with Burnside Associates in Woodstock, consulting engineers, and Shannon Tweedle is also a member of our team in Woodstock, and she's here as well. So we're here to present the Harley Municipal Drain under Section 76 of the Drainage Act. Just advance the slide. So the authority to present the drainage report today is under Section 76 of the Drainage Act, and that was by resolution of council in December of 2022, and that is to provide a reassessment of the Harley Municipal Drain for the future for the purpose of future maintenance. So this report does not detail construction or new works. This is just a report that gives the municipality the authority to bill out future maintenance costs. The history of the Harley Drain involves five existing reports. There was a report in 1931 that started the Harley Municipal Drain by Leon Nash. There was a report in 1954 by LaPlante. There was two reports in 1974 by Carl Westland, and the final report is from 2012 by K Smart Associates. Our findings after being appointed are these. The Harley Municipal Drain System is made up of approximately 20 kilometers of open ditch and 2.5 kilometers of tile drain. The Harley Municipal Drain outlets into a tributary of the Big Creek. The drain encompasses about 1,623 hectares of land. That's about 4,000 acres. We found that there was an overlap in the maintenance schedules of the 1931 and the 1954 reports. And we also found that the 1974 report recommended that a new maintenance schedule be prepared before commencing of work on the main drain. We found that the schedules from the previously identified reports are unfair and they are unusable to distribute maintenance costs today. Most of the open ditch system requires a full clean out and brushing, and some of the branches have already had some work done on them in the last 3 years. Our recommendations. Our recommendations are that schedules in Appendix C of this report would be adopted for distribution of future maintenance costs within the drain. We also recommend that drains 4-2, 4-4, and portion of drain 4 be excluded from this report because there's already a request for abandonment of those sections of the existing drain. We recommend that the gradient and the specifications of each section of the existing drain be used for the future and govern the future maintenance of this drain. And we also recommend that the cost to maintain any crossings or structures within the drain be borne by the owners of those crossings or structures. Is the watershed plan available to be brought up? No. We'd like to just to show everyone the watershed plan, if we can. So here you're looking at the watershed plan for the Harley Municipal Drain. This is an area that encompasses approximately 4,000 acres. So it's a very large drainage watershed, and it's located mostly to the north and the west of the village of Harley. And in our report, we've identified the individual drain sections by different colors to make it easier for you to identify where you are and what section of the drain you would be involved with. We can go back to the presentation. Okay, so the project cost to construct and put together this report included site investigations, an on-site meeting, the watershed plan, an assessment schedule for future maintenance costs, and that total cost is $54,600. That shall be invoiced to the owners in accordance with the report cost distribution in Appendix B. And we find that it would be equal benefits for a fair and usable maintenance schedule to be reproduced. And as such, we find that each property should be assessed an equal share of the preparation of this report. Since we submitted and distributed the report, we've had some discussion with some owners. And we find that in branches A and B, the assessment schedule was not put together correctly. So we propose that we make those changes and corrections to the assessment schedule for branches A and B, and that we would propose those corrections to be adopted by the Court of Revision. We also found that the appendix maintenance schedule for Appendix C was duplicated in the original report, so it should just be removed. And that, Mr. Chairman, is my report.
Okay, thank you for that. So the way it works now is this is going to be opened up to the public to make comments if they choose to do so. But just a reminder that any of the assessments that the engineer has spoken about or is contained in the report at this point are not not open for appeal at this point in time. If there is any assessment appeals, my understanding is there's a court revision that's scheduled for February the 27th of 2024, if the report is to be provisioned and adopted. So anything in that sense would go to that court of revisions. So what I'm going to do, thank you for your time. You can have a seat now for now, but just stand by. I'm going to ask, is there anybody here from the public that wishes to speak to this report? I'm going to ask, yep, come on up to the front if you could, please, to the microphone. If you could just state your name and address. Can you just, is the green light on that mic? Just push the button.
Mary Ferreira,
Perfect.
Concession 8, Lot 17. I understand this, I'm not sure if these questions are appropriate at this stage, but I had, I saw that there were percentages allotted for each drain. And so I'm assuming that once there is a cost assigned for each drain, that those are the percentages of the cost breakdown for each farmer. Is that correct? Okay. The other questions I had were, do we yet have an estimation for the costs for the drains?
So what I'm going to do here, if you could just ask your questions, then I'll bring them back up at the end if there's no questions.
Oh, okay. Sure. So I had a question about, do we have an estimation for the drainage costs? The other question I had was, do we have a timeline? So do we know what the breakdown, how long this is going to take, when each drain is going to be cleared out? Is this going to be done within the next year? Is it going to be done within the next 5 years? I think that was it for questions.
Okay, thank you. And as I say, I'll bring them back up at the end and we can get all these questions answered up. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to this report? I'm going to ask, yep, come on up if you could, please. Again, if I could just get you to state your name and address, thank you.
Robert Hughes.
Oh, just to make sure the green light is on.
There we go. Robert Hughes, 164 Harley Road. I had a question. The cost allotted to each property owner seems to be based on the advantages to the property plus the acreage. It seems to be contrary to the way we were billed for the initial report. Each property owner, regardless of size or benefit, got charged $420 per parcel, no matter whether you have 100 acres or 2 acres. And I thought that was a little bit unfair. So I'd like to know how you came up with the $420 per person. That was one thing. My next question was regarding the on-site meeting way back in May. It seems that there was a very limited number of participants in that meeting, and I was wondering why, with a project of this size, why more property owners weren't notified of that on-site meeting, and why we're just hearing about this project now after all this time. Like, being the initial meeting back in May, we just get this report handed to us, and by surprise, really. That was one thing. My last question was how you came to determine the advantages to a property. Like, how did you come to determine that a certain property has certain advantages? Because the lay of the land hasn't changed. That's something that hasn't changed over time. So how can a property now being assessed for advantages under this report not have had the same advantages years ago? And those are my three questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to the report? I'll ask a second time. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the report? I'll ask a third and final time. Is there anybody from the audience that wishes to speak to this report? Okay, seeing no more questions from the audience, I will ask if the committee has any questions for the engineer. Councillor Chambers?
Yes, I may have some questions, but depending on the answers that were asked by the members of the public.
Okay. All right. Councillor Miller, the same type of thing?
Yeah, just one question.
Just bear with me, Councillor Miller. If we could get the engineer to come back up again, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Just if he could clarify, through Mr. Chair, each property should be assessed based on the volume and rate of flow artificially caused to flow into the Harley municipal drain. Are we going on the volume of flow, or do we go? Mr. Hughes was up speaking about the benefit to the property owner. How do you how's it determined?
If I can, through you, your chairman, I'll address that question right now. First of all, so this is a report under Section 76. So what it does is just reapportions the cost for future maintenance, because the original reports, being so old, don't reflect the land that it is today. And it was unfair because the engineer at the time did assess benefit and looked at the properties, how they benefited and how they outletted. Outlet is based on area. Benefit is based on the improvement to the actual individual properties. So to respond to the other gentleman's question, I look at reassessment for maintenance only, and that's what we're doing, just for maintenance only, based on the outlet, the rate of flow. So that's an area calculation. So we went through and looked at each property for their area and rate of flow and created that assessment schedule for future maintenance, that percentage that the first questioner asked, based on the area, not on improvements to the property, not on benefits to the property, just how that property fits in within bigger watershed. And that's how I feel it's fairer to do maintenance work.
Just to follow, is that standard practice to go based on outlet, which is based on area, versus benefit? I don't know.
So every individual engineer is different in the way they do it. So when you write a report and put a maintenance schedule in a report, you may choose to do the maintenance schedule based on your construction schedule, which then throws that benefit in. I don't believe that that's fair. I believe that once the construction is done, those benefits to those properties have been looked after, and now you're just dealing with maintenance in the future. And in my opinion, that should be based on an area calculation. So I feel the way we did it here and updating everything based on area is a fair way of dealing with maintenance.
Okay, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Okay, so what we'll do here is I'm just going to run through the questions here, and you can answer them from the audience. I think you just kind of hit on the how you do the cost for the drains. You've kind of hit on that first question. The next one was a timeline. Do we have a timeline on this?
So the timeline, I believe she was looking at future construction or future maintenance work. That is up to the drainage superintendent and those people that are looking for that work. Our report does not have timelines. This is just a method to assess those costs out when they happen. And I know that the drainage superintendent will have cost estimates and will have meetings with those owners when they are affected by those maintenance operations.
Okay. The third question from the second gentleman, it got around the cost again as to how the $420 per person was come about. If you could respond to that.
So the $420 is what I feel that this new report does for everybody. So without this report, the municipality really can't do maintenance work, your hands are kind of tied. So everybody would be affected the same way. You can't get the drain fixed. So in creating this report, I feel it's equally important to the small property owner as to the big property owner that you have a new report. So I assess that cost equally.
Okay, appreciate that. The next question was regards to the on-site meeting in May. There was just a limited number of participants. Was there how were people notified of the meeting?
So we would have had the watershed area of the Harley Drain, and we would have had the information for all the landowners within the Harley Drain. We get that information from the municipality, and we send out the notice for that meeting. So everyone within the watershed would have been notified of that meeting. Whether they show up or not, I don't have control of that. And at those meetings, we give out our information, we give out our contact information, and those people can contact us at any time through the process. It is a big drain. It is a big watershed area. It did take time to get this done. It did take time to get back to this point.
Okay, and then you kind of touched on it, but if you could just elaborate a little bit more as to, or if you can, how you determine the advantage to the property.
Okay, so that really goes back to the original engineer's report would have had a benefit assessment and an outlet assessment. And I don't look at maintenance as a benefit to the property. It's based on an outlet. So we reassessed this whole watershed based on outlet only. And that's just how much area you have within the watershed. It's not an assessment to how it benefits your property. There's no benefit assessment included.
Okay, that's all the questions that I had there. So I'm going to go back to committee. Councillor Chambers, question?
Excuse me. Yes, my question is related to the assessment of the cost of the report to the property owners. You've determined that each property benefits the same by having a report. Is that according to the Drainage Act, or is that according to your opinion?
So I believe the Drainage Act does not talk to this, how an engineer assesses out their cost. So this would be my opinion. It'd be my opinion that this report is equally beneficial to every landowner within the watershed, whether they're a small property owner or a large property owner.
If one disagrees with that, is that a matter of the Court of Revision, or is that a matter of a decision of council?
I believe, Shannon, do you have any thoughts on that? Is that a Court of Revision, the cost of this report? Is that a Court of Revision question? Okay, so that they could appeal their cost for this report to the Court of Revision, and it could be dealt with by the court.
So if the Court of Revision determined, or basically disagreed with your opinion, they can assess accordingly the cost of the report?
I believe so, yes. It would have to be the same thing as an assessment. If they lower one cost, they would have to increase the cost somewhere else. It's not that they can make it go away. They have to redistribute. So Court of Revision redistributes assessments, and in this case, it'd be the cost.
And perhaps, Mr. Chairman, that be an eventuality. I'm wondering if you could explain why the cost of the report, maybe elaborate on your determination. Why is not the cost of the report based on the assessment schedule, whereby a large, for example, a 200-acre farm pays the same as a residential 1/3 lot?
So I talked about this originally, but the way I believe that when you have a maintenance schedule or redistribution of your maintenance schedule, it equally benefits everyone within the watershed. Without this schedule, you can't do the work. So everybody has the same problem. There is no way, no mechanism for the municipality to do the maintenance work. So I believe creating this maintenance schedule for you to actually do the work equally benefits all the property owners evenly.
Councillor Chambers?
And a final question, is that a common way to do that?
I can't tell you that because every individual engineer is different, right? And there's not, we could look back on other Section 76 reports, but 76 reports are not that common. a lot of time you're riding at 78, reworking the whole schedule and the whole construction.
Councillor Miller.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up to the question I had that Councillor Chambers had. Three to the engineer. Okay, just help me with this schism I'm having in my brain here. So the maintenance work, you said is going to be based on outlet, right? Which is based on area, not on benefit. And the previous engineer way back when went kind of on benefit. So that's the maintenance work based on outlet / area. But the report is beneficial to every landowner. So the report itself isn't based on outlet or / area size. It's based on just everybody in that watershed is going to get some benefit from that. So that's, if you understand, that's I think the issue I'm getting hung up on. So, and I think some of the residents might be too. So that $420 cost, if it was a maintenance cost, it would be apportioned based on outlet. But you're calling it a benefit to every landowner, which I agree it is, but at the same time, that justifies, I think, in the report, everybody getting that equal $420 cost. Is that a fair read on that?
That's how I've determined it.
Okay.
Right? So there's two costs in this report. There's a maintenance schedule for future work. That's the percentages that's here in the actual report, the assessment schedules. And then there's the cost of building this report itself. If we were doing a Section 478 report, those costs are all lumped in: construction, engineering, allowances, and then the engineer assesses that out, benefit and outlet to the landowners. In this case, I look at this as a maintenance operation. I believe it should be done as an outlet type of assessment. That's what's in the report. The cost to build the report is the $54,000. I believe it should be distributed evenly.
Any other questions from committee? Okay, seeing none. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask for a mover, and the motion would be to the presentation from Paul and RJ Burnside Associates Limited be received as information. And also that committee is going to recommend council to give 2 readings to the Harley Drain bylaw and adopt the report as a provisional bylaw. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Coleman. Seconder for that, Councillor Oakley. Questions to that? Councillor Chambers.
I'm wondering, Mr. Chairman, if you can just explain that for the members of the public. 2 readings of the bylaw happen, and then if there are appeals or whatever, a court of revision is convened before the final reading. I wonder if someone can explain that to the people, because there may be challenges to the assessment schedule via the court of revision.
Okay. I think you just did a pretty good job of that, but if so in essence, in order for the bylaw to be approved, there's got to be 3 readings of the bylaw. So my understanding here, correct me if I'm wrong, if we read it twice, then the court of provisions is held after that. So if there is any questions or changes, it can come back prior to the 3rd reading and approval of that bylaw. That's kind of my understanding.
And the last thing, I know there are time constraints on when people can make an appeal to the court of revision, and whether or not a court of revision happens, whether there are any appeals or not.
That I'm going to look for assistance for if I can. Anybody for the time frame for appeals to the court of revisions? Shannon, if you could. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. A notice will be sent out to every single landowner assessed into the Harley Municipal Drain Watershed Project. And in that notice, it will tell you when you need to submit any written appeals. Generally, it's no later than 10 days prior to the court of revision date. But the court of revision also has the opportunity or ability at the time of the meeting to accept late and verbal appeals. So that's something they can vote on at that time.
Okay, that's good to know, but I would suggest to potentially not count on that late submission. So if you are going to put something in, I would suggest to do it with the 10-day prior. Councilor Miller, you had something?
The quarter revision date is set for February 27th. Do we need to appoint members now, or do we wait till we hear? Well, I guess we have to at some point appoint members because that has to go ahead because Shannon just said somebody could approach at the last minute and it's a decision of the quarter revision. So at what point, Mr. Chair, should we be appointing members to that quarter revision?
I'm going to ask for help on this one again. I'm not sure. I don't know whether we do that today or.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think it's on the schedule for today to appoint members to the court. Rob Walton was taking care of that. Is Rob here?
Mark, are you able to help us out on that? No? Okay, just bear with us for 1 second here.
Generally, Mr. Chair, we do appoint 3 members.
I've been told that council on the 30th, that'll be done.
Okay.
Okay, is that wrong? Okay, any other questions from committee? Thank you, Shannon, for that. We've got a motion that's moved and seconded to receive and for the 2 readings of bylaw. No further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, our next delegation is Andrea Bowden from the area of Highland Estates and Cleaver Road Bridge. Okay, so Andrea, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. The presentation that we received it looks to be the same presentation as the last meeting. Is it the same or is there different talking points?
Totally different.
Okay, we'll go with that then. Can we get her up here?
Hi there, good morning. I'm Andrea Bowden of 28 Wingrove Woods in Brant County. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of the area of Highland Estates on the restructure and reopening of the Cleaver Road Bridge to vehicles. This is my community report number 3, and us as taxpayers pay the county, and in return, the county provides us with reliable and safe infrastructure. On infrastructure, did you know that our community has been in the dark for approximately 6 days now? This was an infrastructure solar lighting that was done in 2023, and obviously you need sun for these lights to work. This is just a sideline, but it is infrastructure, it is county infrastructure, and it is not working. Anyhow, let's go back to the bridge. So these photos were from approximately 5 years ago. As you can see, there's visible damage. We had no repairs to this bridge prior to the closure in July of 2023. In the meeting of the closure, there was a statement by Rob Walton. He does not want to see bridges closed simply because we let them get to a state of disrepair. So why should the Cleaver Bridge be restructured and reopened? Well, the Cleaver Bridge has been around for over 100 years, and the residents directly affected traveled over this bridge. It was an existing and direct route. It was a safe route. And there were about a minimum of 124 residents that traveled over this bridge every day. Some of the other things, it was a shorter route in time and distance. There were decreased response times for any emergency services to more than half of the residents. It was a safer route than the closest reroute of Robinson Road, if anyone's gone down there in the wintertime. And then to access Rest Acres Road or to cross Rest Acres Road, that is a safety concern to us as well. It relieves some of the traffic congestion at Rest Acres and 53 Light intersection, It also relieves traffic congestion at the Mill Street stop sign, which is directly outside of a daycare, and it preserves the historical value of the bridge. Where will the funds come from? I pulled some reports from the county. These were approved reports, and some money was allocated and approved for the Cleaver Ridge repairs. However, it was never done, and also there was some projected money put aside as well, some budgeted or forecasted. So then I wanted everyone in our community to have a voice, whether they supported the petition or they didn't support the petition. And I keep talking of 124 people of 160. I'll let you know where the 160 came from. I went on MPAC, the Municipal Property Assessment. There's a map there. I went through each individual property or municipal address, whether it be vacant land or farmland or a residence, and those accounted to 160. Then I went door to door for 5 days, approximately 3 to 4 hours a night, and received signatures. I wanted to be sure that everyone in our community who was directly affected had a voice in this. 124 people did support the petition. 3 abstained support either way. 3 did not support the petition. 14, I actually dropped off a flyer, but no one has replied as of yet. And 16, I was not able to reach them as they were vacant land, farmland, or perhaps a dog in the driveway that I could not, go to the residence. There were 2 businesses that were supportive of this, and they felt so strongly that I actually did a separate petition for them. They put it at their business, and we received an additional 56 supporters that way. So after the petition of December, I was given some information by the operations committee. This was one of the consultation process outlines, procedures. And also I received a TMP bridge map, so the Transportation Master Plan bridge map, where I found actually 15 other bridges that were actually closed as well, or slated to be closed due to low volume. So my petition actually involved everyone in our community and everyone that was directly affected. They were all Canadian residents. They were verifiable. They had addresses, contact information. Due to the process for the structure, I was told that engagegrant.ca, and there were predetermined members of the public. So my question is, how were they predetermined? There were surveys based on all of these structures, a first initial survey, a second survey. These were all done by a consultant called IBI Group in 2021. Unfortunately, these 15 bridges that were slated to be closed on the map, only 4 were Burford residents that were even close to the Cleaver Bridge. There was later a 245-page survey, or an update, that was presented to council regarding the bridge management. And I'm just trying to figure out who actually slated the Cleaver Bridge as low use, or what the criteria for the bridge closures were. More questions actually about the survey, the 235-page results. Questions such as, do you recreational bike or walk? Did you work from home during COVID? Unfortunately, I don't think any of these actually had anything to do with our bridge. However, there was a question that was relevant to our neighborhood and to a bridge. And that was, please provide any comments that you may have about goods movement issues or opportunities that the Transportation Master Survey should address. And one of them was enforcement of truck routes. Many of the residents replied that they didn't want heavy trucks. So at this point, Brant County on October 17th under a snow removal and parking restriction, actually took away the weight restrictions of the Mill Street Bridge, which is the other bridge that is in our community. And you guys can read all the bylaws and things like that and why the reasons were that trucks actually are restricted. This is an 18-ton bridge, the same as the Cleaver Bridge. In the report, it stated because the Cleaver Bridge is now closed, well, we should address the Mill Street Bridge and lift the restrictions there. So now I guess we're going to have heavy trucks going through Mill Street as well. The signs are already gone. The infrastructure on both sides of the bridge are narrower than the actual bridge. Yes, I understand the bridge was built to, super highway levels, but the infrastructure and the road infrastructure on both sides and residents, frankly, don't want this. So there was a comment there that residents actually brought this to the table, and of all the 130, there was no resident that actually said, hey, I want more trucks on our road. Please lift the restrictions on the current bridge. So this is the map that I was given with the 15 bridges that were candidates for bridge closure. Just wondering as well if any of the other residents in these other areas are aware of this, because nobody in our community was aware of this. So again, this is prior to our bridge closing. This is like
Andrea, sorry to interrupt you. You have 1 minute left.
I'm sorry.
1 minute left. Thank you.
Here's the solution. Here's a cost-effective solution. I contacted several companies that do this. This is bridge inserts or culverts. This is an actual diagram of the Cleaver Bridge. I've given them information on spans and heights and things like that, and they came up with this diagram. So it can simply be pushed through the bridge or under the bridge, filled on top with cement, and then traffic goes over it and nothing is disrupted. So again, this is an actual drawing, and I do have pricing as well. So again, this is a cost-effective solution. This is another company, AIL, same kind of idea. Cleaver Bridge is on the left, the new insert is on the right. There are several communities and municipalities doing this right now across Ontario. Some of them have done 4 and 5 already. Essex County is one of them. Sudbury is another one. They've done 2 already as well. These are some more ideas of how this can be done. And in summary, I'm just asking Brant County to please listen to our community and our needs and assess the Cleaver Bridge project as a priority for us, to post a rehabilitation bid for a cost-effective solution for our bridge, award a bridge or a bid bridge to restructure and reopen for vehicles. Maybe we need to apply to the Ontario government for additional funding. I know there was a Van Sickle Bridge Community Fund, OCIF, by the government. And again, take me up on my ride along so that you can see our issues, our concerns for yourselves. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from committee? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I need Andrea up at the podium to ask the question.
Andrea, if you could come back up, please.
Just
go ahead, Councillor Miller.
Yeah, just I understand the frustration with the transportation master plan, but because that was the first notice of possible bridge closures, and a big deal was made around this table about that. But yeah, it was frustrating, I know, at this table, because the public wasn't maybe as fully engaged as they should be. So I appreciate that comment you made. But I wanted to ask you, were you able to obtain a copy of the OSIM report for that Cleaver Bridge?
Was I able to, I'm sorry,
obtain an OSIM report, where they look at the structure every 2 years?
Any structural reports. I filed a Freedom of Information with the county November 3rd. The 30 days has expired. I have not received anything, but we do have a meeting scheduled January 30th. I'm hoping to get some.
we'll take it up there
Information
because
then.
yeah, I'm not. I don't know if that's not public. Or I thought that was public information.
It actually is public information because there are some on the Van Sickle Bridge.
Yep.
As well as other bridges that are posted online.
Okay, we'll follow up then. Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Any other questions from committee? Councilor McAlpine?
Just curious, what is the ballpark figure for the bridge insurance?
The ballpark figure for?
The cost of a bridge insert? You said you had some figures on the estimates for
Oh,
doing.
I mean, they're very vague, obviously. It was per foot. If you're interested, I can send you the report.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions from committee? Councilor Bell?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's a question I'd like to ask to staff, which is related to it. Is that
Go ahead.
possible? Yeah, so the question I have, and maybe it would help inform the residents of this area, how will we assess the priorities and what the level of service is for any given community? Because I won't take you up on your ride around, because I go through that way fairly regularly. My grandson lives in Burford, so we often go through there, and we're nosy, so we go different ways.
Wonderful.
So we know many of the ways you go. So there is a lot of service capacity for that area to get out to anywhere, whether it's down Robinson Road, Mill Street, the other way down Cleaver Road. There is an inconvenience, I understand that, because you may be asked to drive only part of the community, be asked to drive a certain amount of extra kilometres. But I think we have to, as a council, step back and say, what are the priorities for our whole community? And I don't know where this fits, and maybe Mark could just give us a sense of whether this is high on our priority list or whether there are other priorities that we have to address before we get to this.
Mark, you able to comment?
Through the chair to committee, there are a number of priorities. We look at everything. We take our YOSIM reports that we receive from the consultants, the bridge management reports that we receive. We look at total funding across the 10 years. In this case, as you mentioned, when the TMP was looked at, we looked at the possibility of where are there bridge locations if we were going to try to decrease the number of assets the county has, where could we possibly do that? That's where the list of 15 came from. There are at least 3 locations on that where there are multiple bridges, either on a parallel road or on the same road. So we would not remove or change the function of all 15. 3 of those locations, we would have to make a decision between the 2 structures as a part of the entire process as to which one do we decide to remove from an actual vehicular structure, if that's the route that we go. From the financial plan, we are underfunded currently by, millions of dollars to make up for everything. So even if we were to say we're going to proceed based on everything, the Cleaver Road Bridge, unless we are directed by council differently, isn't a high priority for replacement at this point. There are other roads, as you mentioned, Mill Street. The decision, I know having talked with other staff, when Mill Street was replaced, it was decided that Mill Street was the more appropriate bridge to replace and spend the money on over Cleaver because of the location, how close it was to Highland Estates and a direct route out to 53. That's why the money was spent there. And next to no money was spent on Cleaver Road, knowing that it was going to go to the end of life. And that's what we had discussed previously, that it was taken to end of life. And that's where we are now. That's why it got closed. We discussed this in December, that it was closed because when Highway 24 was closed, traffic was rerouted, heavy trucks were using it, it was low posted, they did not care. That opens the county to the liability if there was ever any issue. That was the decision to close it completely and remove that liability for the county.
So quick follow-up if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
So Mark, then our conclusion is that there is a satisfactory level of service for Highland Estates, and in particular, we don't see any issues in regard of emergency services access to Highland Estates.
That is correct. Because the Cleaver Bridge was low posted anyways, fire has not been using it for quite an extended period of time. And everyone else, like there's opportunity for everyone in other roads to get there. Paramedics come from any location, either from an actual service center that they're located at, or from anywhere around the county or outside of the county to respond. So it doesn't, the one direct route, it's not the end of the world. There's other roads. Just to add a comment on the removal of the load posting on the bridge, as it came up as well on the Mill Street Bridge. Because that bridge...
Stand by 1 second, Mark. Can everybody just confirm that their cell phones are off, please? Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
At the time of replacement, the bridge itself would have been, there would have been no load posting required on that bridge when it was replaced. The load posting should have been removed at that time and not extended beyond. So that was just a cleanup. And I've been here for 5 years. When I drove over the first time, I questioned why that was still load posted at 18 tones, knowing full well it was a brand new bridge and it would not require a load posting. So just to add to that, on top of that removal.
Thank you. Councilor Bell, you're good. Any other questions from committee? Councilor Chambers.
Mr. Chairman, through you perhaps to Mark, let be perfectly clear. The decision to close a bridge or keep a bridge open is a decision of council. Is that correct?
Correct. Ultimately, we will provide back the information, but it will be the decision of council to provide final direction.
Okay. Councilor Miller.
Yeah, and I've been telling people, but just to be clear, that report, we expect second quarter of this year, yes? We expect a report from Public Works on that bridge second quarter of this year?
On Cleaver Road?
Yes.
At some point, yes. We have to start the engagement process as we discussed in November as per that staff report that was approved. And then we'll go through it, and it's just a matter of how long it takes to get through this. This one may take longer. It may not be quarter two. It just depends on how much engagement and everything that it will take for us to get through the process.
Good thing. Yeah, it should be pointed out the decision hasn't been made, will be made based on staff's input, but also based on the input of the public. So, and that's all going to come forward in one report. I thought it was second quarter, but yeah, it doesn't sound like it will be, but it will be this year. So to anybody listening, it is important that if you have input, make sure you give it.
Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just more of a comment than anything from what Councilor Miller has just commented on. 3 years ago this April, South Springs Road closed, temporarily closed because of a slope failure. We're still waiting, so it's hard for me to have sympathy for another project to move ahead of it. So those residents have been, their life has been disturbed and whatnot, but it takes, what I'm trying to say is, it takes time for all this stuff to happen to go through the reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions from committee? Okay, seeing none, how do we want to, Councilor Coleman?
Receive, Mr. Chair.
Motion to receive, and a second. Councilor Oakley. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Sorry, we're done with that at this time. Thank you. Okay, our next delegation here, Kelly Geertz. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Geertz. Joan Gatward and Carol Daniels regarding the Oakland Community Center. Councilor Garneau, did you want to add something here?
If that's all right, Mr. Chair, we have a number of community organizations that put together a single delegation request, and if council might grant them some latitude if they need a few extra minutes to speak, similar as to some of the other delegations when we've had multiple representatives on one form, please.
Mayor Bailey, second with that. All in favor of committee? Opposed? Okay. Kelly, Joan, and Carol, come on up. We left you on your own, Joan. Okay.
I have a cold, and sometimes I start coughing and I can't control my cough. But I want to, before I start, introduce our committee members on the hall. We have our retired county customer service clerk. Prior to the pandemic, Sharon was in the office, and she's our booking person and treasurer. Sharon, can you stand up? Just wave. Okay. Carol Daniels is our backup booking clerk. She's the treasurer of Scott Oak Seniors. She's retired from the CAS, and she has health and safety training, so she's our health and safety person on the committee. Janet Ritchie is a former Scott Oak Seniors treasurer, and she's got decades on the seniors group, so we thank her for all the work she does. And Kelly Gertz is on our committee as the Lions rep. He is president of the South Brant Lions Club, and he has a short presentation when I'm finished. And Darlene Caristuri is here. She is a community member at large on our committee, has the whole hall history, as her husband was an Oakland Township councillor. He was a reeve and a warden of the county of Brant. And Darlene's been very helpful on our hall committee. And I'd also like to thank members of the community who came out on such a cold, snowy morning in support of their hall. So I have a copy, Mr. Chair, of our presentation for the clerk. And I'll get started now. Originally, we planned to come to a budget meeting in support of our hall. However, when we learned about this meeting from the clerk, we realized it was important to come today. We want to thank her for her transparency and assistance. You might say Oakland entered into a public-private partnership with the Masons before PPPs became in vogue. After municipal acquisition in the late 70s, the South Brant Lions Club, all volunteers, built and paid for an addition, which includes a storage room and great functional cater-friendly kitchen. The kitchen is a big attraction for fundraising dinners in the community. The Scotland firefighters hosted a delicious annual roast beef dinner, and they raised all kinds of money for the Scotland Fire Hall for extras. The Masons held very successful Father's Day brunches and annual fish fries. They fried the fish outside and not in the hall. The Lioness, they held popular winter Sunday soup lunches and monthly Friday euchres. The Scott Oak Seniors used the hall from their founding days for 40 plus years. And when Scotland Community Centre opened, staff asked them if they'd like to move to Scotland, and they said no, they liked Oakland and they wanted to stay where they were. We closed during the pandemic and were ready to open. And then we learned it was leased to OPP for 2 years. So the seniors, if they wanted to continue, had to go to the Scotland Community Centre. Oakland Community Centre was home for the Lions since the grand opening. They paid for each rental that they used. The Lions, though, had to find a new temporary home also. And our Oakland Safe Zone Seniors exercise group that met twice a week, we went to Mount Pleasant Community Centre. Scotland was already becoming very busy, and we don't believe could accommodate all the extra bookings. When we opened the Oakland Hall, it was booked from mid-November right through to mid-January, just for Christmas parties, Lions and Seniors Christmas parties. And due to its size, it was ideal for wedding, baby showers, funeral receptions. We had anniversary celebrations, all kinds of birthday parties. The Agromart came and had farm pesticide courses there. We had elections and more. The hall is bright and inviting with larger, newer windows. It has, as I mentioned, a terrific catering friendly kitchen and lots of washrooms. Our park and playground on site are also a bonus for families when they rent the hall. And the maximum capacity is 150. The county installed new kitchen cupboards and flooring a few years before the pandemic, and we appreciated that, and the hall looks great. The South Brant Lions paid for the new stainless steel countertops that are easy to sanitize, and the South Brant Lions installed a new commercial dishwasher, and a licensed electrician upgraded the wiring in the kitchen. Our Oakland Community Center is truly a labor of love by our community volunteers, and it's a gem in Oakland. Our residents, volunteers, and Lions are eager to reopen. It was one of the busiest halls in the county when staff took a survey. I don't have a copy of that anymore, but it was some time ago. With the new growth in our area, we're excited to see what the future will bring and provide this valuable gathering place. We're happy with the current operating model and using our county-approved rental agreement. Our model is similar to Glen Morris, Pine Grove and Howell Hall, and Onondaga Halls. The county owns the building, and the Committee of Management operates and books the hall, pays minor expenses, and shares the utilities. In the past, we shared the utilities with the county because the customer service office was in there. And we also had 3 property management staff that used that office. It's a nice big room, almost the size of this. And we are prepared to rent that space out if the county doesn't want to continue to use it. We also want to continue to provide space for the community policing office. It was in Oakland. They moved from Mount Pleasant because the Mount Pleasant Optimists needed the space. So it was very important they have a location in our end of the county. And we still have their OPP chair in that office. So we hope that when I talked to Sergeant McTaggart at the Canesville grand opening, I believe he was quite receptive to continuing that office. We're prepared to pay for the janitor, share for utility expenses, minor expenses, and the county could schedule long-term capital expenses so that they're affordable. The hall is accessible with a ramp. It has a wheelchair automated button, 4 washrooms, and we have accessible wheelchair washroom stalls. The staff want us to make the vanities smaller in the ladies' room to make the wheelchair radius larger. And we're prepared to do that. There is an extensive water treatment system in the furnace room. It's been professionally installed, and it treats the well water for the hall and the Masonic Lodge. There's a grandfathered agreement to share expenses because the well is located on the Masons' property. I believe that county staff have worked that out with the Masons, and they plan to put in a new well and got a reasonable cost for that. I'd like to add that the only county-owned park and playground is at the community center in Oakland. The playground is very well used and accessible in the center of the village. A neighbor backing onto the playground commented to committee members they see how busy the park is and the new families using it that they don't even know. And the growth in our community, we've got 23 new estate lots in Malcolm Mills Estates. These are $1 million plus homes, and many of them are already occupied. They have children, they use the park, and there's 4 homes coming on King Street South. There's 2 under construction on Walter Street, and there's 5 new lots approved across from the cemetery recently on Oakland Road. So we have lots of growth coming to our community. We understand that members of council have some difficult budget decisions to make. However, we think that this budget decision should be easy. We just want to be treated equally with Glen Morris, Onondaga, Pine Grove, and Howell. And we want to continue with our pre-pandemic hall rental agreement. And we provided an updated one to staff in July. We met for a hall walkthrough in November with staff and the Masons. And that's when we learned about the water issue, and we were advised the hall cannot reopen until repairs are made. We are wondering if this in-camera report today before you is trying to close our hall. I didn't even want to say that because we can't fathom that, but we're not privy to the report or any financial information before you today. We know that this committee and council want flourishing communities and volunteers who are willing to step up and assist the county. We're ready, willing, and able. And we want to keep this beautiful hall in a growing community viable. We hope that investment in our hall long term will ensure continuation of this valuable asset. And we're inviting all council members to come for a tour at your convenience so we can show you the pride we have in our community center. We're not asking for a new hall like in Kingsville or Glen Morris. We just want to keep our lovely hall with safe repairs to the septic and the cost shared well. Please allow the heart of our community and gathering place to reopen soon and respect the work of our hands. Thank you for listening, and we're happy to answer any questions. And Kelly's shorter than mine, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Joan. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to have Kelly do his presentation, and then we'll see if there's any questions from committee.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, my comments are just in support of many of the things Joan has said. And along with me this morning are 5 other fellow Lion members, Peter Welsh, Ted Rombout, Irene Crawford, Bill Crawford, and Doug Walker. And if there's any questions about the walkthrough that was done, Doug Walker was there. Doug is a licensed electrician and is quite familiar with buildings, so he could also further comment about the building condition. So anyways, good morning, Mr. Bailey and committee members. Thank you for letting me speak on behalf of the South Brant Lions this morning. As introduced by Joan Gatward, I am the current club president. Since the property was converted from a school to a community center, the Lions have had a vested interest. In addition to the labor the club provided, between $38,000 and $40,000 in 1980s dollars were donated to build the addition, which contains the kitchen and storage area. In the past 10 years, the Lions purchased a commercial grade dishwasher for the community center and paid for the required plumbing and electrical upgrades to the kitchen to facilitate its installation. This was another approximately $10,000 donation to the facility. The South Brant Lions have been active in the community since 1955. We support a number of local, provincial, and international charities. We host an annual community event with our July 1st fish fry, and supported and hosted the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Malcolm's Mills in 2014, which is also done jointly with the involvement from the county. I didn't have information available. The South Brant Lioness, which are now been amalgamated in with the Lions, used to hold a number of these events, and I believe did additional donations and purchases for the community center. And then in the past, we've had representatives from Brant County attend our meetings, offering assistance with advertising or posting our events on county calendars. At this time, the county was recognizing the need for the support of service clubs provide their local communities. We hope the county still has this view towards service clubs. The Oakland Community Center has been our home from the 1980s until the pandemic and the following exclusive use by the police task force. We have hoped to return to the community center since the task force completed the residency and departed in September 23. We wish to continue serving our community and to grow with it. We hope the county can help us by being able to use the Oakland Community Center as our home base again in the near future. And I have a few additional comments. As a resident of Oakland, I live right in the community. So one thing I've noticed or haven't noticed in my mail is any notification of any plans to close the community center. Again, maybe we're off base and this isn't proposed, but I'd wish we would be consulted if there is. And if the community center closes, does this include the removal of playground equipment? My question would be is where are the children to play? And then considering a global conscience of everyone trying to reduce their carbon footprint, would the county be supporting driving further, burning more fossil fuels for services they should have locally? And then when I was looking through the agenda, I noticed that one of the other items you have on is reviewing the Scotland-Oakland Master Environmental Servicing Plan and Community Master Plan. And it looks like there is a lot of development that could potentially happen between Scotland and Oakland in the future. So considering that, and one of the things you highlight is the Scotland-Oakland MMESP and CMP will provide valuable information how the community of Scotland and Oakland will develop creating a social community fabric. So if that's your intent to, and concern about a social community fabric, I mean, you may be looking at some short-term cost savings by closing it and not having to do repairs to the community center. But what would be your future cost to build a new community center down the road or purchase lands if you got rid of it? So I would think I would review what the cost of the Canesville Community Center, which is in the middle of an industrial area, so you don't have anything local that kids could go play on or have kids that are local to play there, and just sort of say, okay, what would it cost to replace that in Oakland or a new one in Scotland? Because as Joan had pointed out, the Scotland Community Center is quite busy with the daycare, early years, the Optimist using it. It's a pretty full facility. So I believe there still is a need for the Oakland Community Center.
Okay, thank you for that, Kelly. Questions from committee? Mayor Bailey.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming today. I'd like to apologize for any stress that we may have caused you as a county for you to think the way you're thinking. I feel very badly that you people are worried so much about something so important to you. I would suggest that coming from an area of the county like Glen Morris, myself, having lived in Glen Morris and St. George, I do understand the difference between St. George and Glen Morris and Oakland and Scotland. And just because it's close doesn't mean it's the same. It's the same. So you all have your own needs and your own wants. And I think your commitment to keeping this hall up is stellar, and you should be applauded for that, all of you. It's your money that's in there, and you do it without being asked to. My comment is, if we were to do everything that needs to be done to the hall to make it safe, could you people be organized enough in a month, in a year, to buy it from us for $1? The county of Brant has a history of doing the right thing when it comes to buildings like this. We've done it in St. George with the old school. We've done it in St. George with the community hall downtown. And you people have proven that you're not sort of fly by night, that you're very much invested in this. And if you could imagine organizing a group to be able to take over the ownership of this building in 1 year, if we were to bring it up to code and do the things that we need to do with the water. And I think we went through the list. I've spoken to staff and I've spoken to a couple of people. And I think if we were to do everything we need to do to sell it to you to make it safe, it would be about $64,000 this year on the budget. And then after that, if you were able to, I mean, this is just my idea. We're going to talk about things obviously at a different time in camera. And I've got some support. Is that something that you could do in a year if we made it safe? I mean, things like the parking lot that need to be done, you'd have to do that yourself. But if we fulfilled everything we needed to do to make it safe to sell it to you in one calendar year, could you form an organization to be in place to take possession of the building and the property? We would do the severances that were needed to take it over and to own it at a nominal price and run it as your own.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Mayor. The taxpayers in our area have already purchased that building twice now. We paid for it as part of the Brant County Board of Education when it was a school. And then we purchased it from the school board in the late 70s. And that's when we made it into a community center and joint facility with the Masons. And I would be remiss if I just said, sure, we can do that, because I'm only one person. And we would have to hold a community meeting to discuss this. We would have to be privy to the report that's before you that shows projected capital costs. And unless the county's willing to bring it back up to speed, I guess we have difficulty understanding how, if there's so many things wrong, how it got that way when it's been closed for almost 4 years. Things could have been repaired during that time, is what I think, but not during the pandemic because nobody was working. But I would have to defer that question until such time as we had a community meeting. We can't get into our hall. We don't have a key, but we want you to come for a tour so you can see that beautiful building. Kelly, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I would say you'd have to present it in writing, but to review it, but I'm not an expert in real estate or buildings. Like I said, you can make the proposal. I can't commit that if we could in a year or not, because I don't have enough information right now.
Yeah, just to respond, that's just an idea. It's my idea. It's been talked about a little bit. It wouldn't be something we would expect you to say yes or no to. We would then have to go through all kinds of things and talk to council. It's going to be a council decision. Certainly not going to be my decision alone, but I know that there is support to do something like that. It also could be something else. But please know that there was no support by myself and a lot of other people to ever close this hall. And I've talked to Councillor Gatwick, Mrs. Joan. I've talked to Joan / alias former councillor about a lot of things lately, and it was never our intention. And I feel the worst thing about this whole thing is I feel badly that you've lost sleep over this. But I guess you do when you're not sure what's going on completely. But it was never my intention to ever support anything like that. So take that for what it's worth.
Any other questions from committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Joan and Kelly, for that. How does committee want to proceed? Councillor Miller?
I'll move to receive, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Garneau, second. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so that is the end of our delegations. So we had a motion earlier to move the in-camera portion of the meeting up to directly following the delegations. So can I get a mover to go in camera, please? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Coleman, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break and then we're going to go in camera. Again, just a reminder that there's no decisions being we are back in open session. I appreciate that. There's one item that, coming from in camera that we want to ratify in open session. I'm just going to, bear with us 1 second here. So the motion is that the County of Brant Council continue to support the Oakland Community Center and work with the community to revitalize the building to use for the community. It was moved by Councillor Coleman, seconded by Councillor Garneau. Any further questions to that? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, thank you for that. All right, we're gonna go back to our regular schedule here. We're skipping all the way back to 5.1, which is adoption of previous minutes. Mover? Councillor Bell, Councillor Oakley. Questions on those previous minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, moving on. Consent items to be approved. We've got a couple, I think we just have one here. RPT-0135-24, which is the 2023 tax write-off report. Can I get a mover? Councillor Oakley, Councillor Kyle, questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Consent items to be received. There's two of them there. Does anybody want either of them pulled? Looking for a mover for both. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle. No further questions. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Staff reports. RPT-0129-24 is the Council and Committee August recess. Gonna move her to get it on the floor. Councillor Oakley, Councillor Coleman, thank you. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. RPT-0118-24 is the traffic modifications at Iarachi Boulevard. Mover? Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Bell. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. 8.3, RPT-0118-24 is the request to tender for the 2024 operational capital projects and fleet purchases prior to the 2024 budget approval. Mover. Councillor Oakley, Councillor Coleman. Questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.4, RPT-010224, on-street permit parking. And a mover. Councillor Bell. Councillor Oakley. Questions? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Greg, see him going up there. You're recommending no changes to on-street permit parking at this time. I know I've had quite a few requests over the last year or two. I see it growing in interest. If it's not at this time, are you planning to come back with a report with firmer recommendations?
Greg?
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, the timing right now for us, we don't think that the time is right. We're not getting that public demand. I understand it may be different for councillors. And from our perspective, the 24-hour provision seems to be working well for the residents and the county. There has been talk in this report about maybe coordinating something with the transportation master plan and the study in the county here. So I think it's something that we're going to look at. We're probably going to bring something back. Waiting will kind of give us the opportunity to secure our software and get our permitting software in order before we move forward with permitting.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you. As long as it's not off the table, I'm happy with the timing you suggested.
Okay. Any other questions to that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving on to 8.5, which is RPT 0110 which is 2024 Scotland. I know we're not supposed to put them together. Scotland Oakland Master Environmental Servicing Plan. Can I get a mover to get that on the table? Councillor Coleman, seconder. Councillor Garneau. Questions to that report? Councillor Miller.
Okay, a couple questions, Mr. Chair. First one, I understand what an area study is. It's a large area that's going to be developed. Where do the schools go? Where do the businesses go? Where do the businesses that serve the community go? Walking trails, all that good stuff. What's the difference between an area study and a community master plan? This is the first time I've seen that community master plan pop up.
Pam, thank you.
Through you, the chair, to Councillor Miller, great question. The new terminology is really just the same. So whether you call it a secondary plan, a community plan, that's what we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at the overall design, land uses, traffic, pedestrian connections, all those good things. But servicing being the most important of this project.
Councillor Miller?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, no, it looks like servicing is a part of it. Second question is, and I don't want to, I'll have to look for it. But anyway, somewhere in the report, it talked bypassing the RFP process to save some time, 3 months. Oh, okay, here it is. It says, as the MESP and CMP, this is on page 4 of your report, as the MESP and CMP are a priority of the county, staff are requesting that the requirements of the county purchasing policy be waived to allow direct negotiations with the external consultants. Subject to Allison's approval, this will save at least 3 months of time for this project. Why is 3 months important when this hasn't been done forever? Can you tell me why 3 months is crucial, that we got to waive the purchasing policy?
Through you again, Chair, to Councillor Miller, another good question. We are rapidly seeing a number of developers and property owners coming forward, specifically in Scotland. And of course, time is of the essence for them. One of those being Haley Elevators, who's quite excited to get moving on their development application. So we would like to ensure that we move forward as expediently as possible.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chair, when it comes time, I'd like some of the recommendation divided up for separate votes.
Sorry?
The recommendation, I would like to break it down by separate votes if I could.
Okay. Councillor Coleman.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully support this recommendation coming forward. It's, I think it's what Pam has said. There's a number of developments potentially coming forward in the Scotland, Oakland area. So it needs to be done, and so I fully support it. All the recommendations.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Okay, I'm going to swing back to Councillor Miller. How do you want to break it down?
Well, if we could break down the last whereas clause, where it doesn't say whereas, but that the purchasing policy be waived. Okay. If we could separate that one out.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to pull that one. We're going to vote on everything right down to the last one, and the staff begin the process of procurement and required external consultants in advance of the 2024 capital budget. We're going to stop it there as the first one. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Garneau, you're good as movers to split them up. Okay, so on just that first part, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now the last clause, and that the purchasing policy be waived to allow direct negotiation with consultants for specific assignments for this project, subject to final approval from the CAO. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. that is for that one there. Moving on to committee reports. 9.1 Cemetery Advisory Committee report. There's no report on that. Still gotta vote on it. There's no report. Just receive his information on 9.1. Councillor Oakley, Councillor Garneau. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Brant Connects Committee report of January the 10th. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes, welcome back. Councillor Kyle. Questions? Councillor Miller?
Not a question, but a correction. Steve Ferrant, item 2 is not the vice chair. That would be me. I would have liked Steve to be the vice chair, but that's not the case.
We could leave it like that if you want, Councillor Miller. No. Thank you for that correction. Any other questions on that report? Okay, so with it amended to David Miller as elected vice chair, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Brant Committee Connect reports from December the 4th. Get a mover? Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Kyle. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Communications, I see none. Other business, Councillor Miller, you had a couple items.
Yeah, two items, Mr. Chair. First item, lights in Highland Estates, the original Highland Estates, they were replaced, not sure when, not too long ago, with the solar lights. They are dark, very dark. I did email Adam because I thought at one time it was Brant Municipal Enterprises looking after lights. So those lights are an issue. I've had a few complaints about that, so I wanted to bring it up and maybe find out which direction I could be pointed in. And in addition to those lights, we have a light at the corner of Bethel and Cleaver Road, an intersection, and we did have a nice light there. It's not working at all. So where, through you, Mr. Chair, where can I, or members of the public in these areas, go for some assistance?
Right.
Thank you, through the chair. So we'll deal with the Highland Estates question first. We're still in partnership, and that's still under warranty with BME. We're working with Sean Yakub with that, but the roads department is very involved. So if we have been taking some calls, so we're working with Sean currently. We do understand that the lights weren't working over the last few days due to we went 2 weeks without any sunlight, but we did get 2 days of sun, so we had them inspected last night at 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock this morning. Out of the 50 lights, all were working, but 2 they were marked. Furthermore to that, we looked into the technology, and Sean has purchased a piece of equipment. So we've talked with the manufacturer. We're actually going to go out and do some software updates to the lights to hopefully increase the illumination during the winter months. So that's something that we're going to try. So this is new technology for the county. So there are going to be some bugs, but we are working on them and we are inspecting them. And then secondly, for Cleaver Road, that light at the corner, that is an older solar technology. We are looking at that, and that is with the roads department. Rick Knapp is discussing it with our electrical contractor that maybe we'll switch the head out for something that's more modern. It was a very good option a few years ago, so it is probably time to have it looked at being changed.
Councillor Miller?
Yeah, thank you, Greg. 2 questions. One, can we get an update on, because you said they're looking at further changing out with some software for those 50 lights. Could we at least get an update on if it's working in a Friday file? Would that be?
Through the chair, we can definitely do that. And I'll let you know the updates taking place as we sit here today. So we'll know shortly. And I'll in that Friday file, I'll provide more information on the technology itself.
Okay, and you mentioned 2 weeks of no sun. I read somewhere one of the media outlets that this was like the darkest December we've ever had or stretched there anyways. Yeah. So these lights, they're solar. I mean, people tell you about the solar and they're great. They're great things. But it's wintertime here and we get the dark. Is there any backup? Is there any battery backup? I don't think there's any electrical backup, but is there any battery backup for these that you're aware of?
Through the chair, there's no battery backup currently, but one thing that with this tool that we're talking about and doing this upgrade, it's adjusting how much the batteries will power down to. So we're going to look at how we use the current batteries and how far we take them down to. It's like a cell phone. You're supposed to run them down to nothing at times and only charge them to 85% if you want your batteries to last. We're going to look at doing adjustments to these lights for the winter months and then back them off during the summer months for the charging. That's what we're looking at is the charging software in these lights.
Okay, I need something to report back, but if any updates you have,
I'll include that in the Friday file for the chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, nobody else said they had anything for other business. Councilor Miller?
Yeah, second item. I think all of us know there's a fire at Sunrise Villa, which is owned by Social Services out in Burford, and I just wanted to bring kudos, give a shout out to our emergency services. I was not there on the scene. That's not my job, but there was some members that were there from the public, and I was told that the OPP and our fire department did an amazing job. As you can imagine, some of these residents are more frail than normal, and they calmed them right down, and they did a really good job. So I just wanted to recognize those guys for what they did. Say thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for bringing that forward. Okay. Nothing else under other business. We've already done our in-camera. I see nothing else on the agenda other than next meeting will be February the 20th, 2024. Motion to adjourn. Wow, I think Councillor Bell had you guys by like a fraction of a second. So we'll go Councillor Oakley.